Hello, my name is Robin, and welcome to this tutorial on how to install PFsense on a virtual machine in VMware Workstation. So what do we need for this tutorial? We need a Windows or Linux computer or laptop with VMware Workstation installed, and we need a PFsense installation ISO image, and I will put a link in the description. So there are some hardware requirements. For the CPU we need a modern Intel processor or AMD processor with VTX or AMD-V. You can look this up by googling your model number of your processor and check out if it is supported or not. Also, it is optional, but if you want to create a VPN connection later on, for instance, then you need to encrypt this connection, and for this it is really handy to have this AES-NE instruction built into your processor. So you can also look this up for yourself. Next, the minimum requirement for memory is 4 gigabytes, since probably your operating system already takes at least 2 gigabytes of memory. In the bare minimum case, you need to have at least 4 gigabytes then to run your virtual machines, especially if you want to run another Windows instance as well. Well, 8 gigabytes or higher is recommended, especially if you want to create more than 2 or 3 virtual machines to test your network, to test something out, or test a new operating system. And then actually 12 or 16 gigabytes is not a luxury. The hard drive needs to have at least 60 gigabytes of free space for your VMs. If you want to use Linux as a client for this tutorial, you could also you also have enough with 30 gigabytes. Keep in mind that if you want to install more virtual machines later on, you need more free space. And keep in mind that if you put these virtual machines on a normal hard drive, it will be slower in comparison to a SSD, which you may be running from right now. Next, the network. So we are going to create a new network behind the PFsense router. So for this we need the VMware net connection, and this connection will provide the PFsense router via DHCP with an IP address to connect to the computer's network interface. Then we install PFsense with 2 network interfaces, a WAN interface and a LAN interface. And then we connect our Windows or Linux client to the LAN interface. So let's get started. So here we go. We have VMware Workstation running here. We want to create a new virtual machine, but first I want to show you that I already installed a client here. This is a Linux client in this case. It is running Debian 8.8, and I already configured this machine. You can install a Windows or Linux client, could be Windows 10, Windows 7, or you could install Ubuntu or anything else you like, as long as it supports a modern internet browser like Chromium or Google Chrome or Firefox or Windows Microsoft Edge. So, but we need to create a new virtual machine, so let's go and do that. We can leave this on typical. Then next, we want to install the operating system later. And since PFsense is based on FreeBSD, we need to click on Other and then select FreeBSD 64-bit. It's really important that you select the 64-bit version. Then next, we can choose our name here. In my case, it will be PFsense, but you can also call it router or PFsense router. You can also select the place where you want to store it. Could be on another hard drive or like another spot on your hard drive. So you can edit this to your liking. Then we go to next. Since it says here that the recommended space, the size of the hard disk for FreeBSD is 20 gigabytes. This is actually not necessary. PFsense has a really small footprint, so if you're not really big on free space, then you can just put like 10 here. This will run very fine, or you can just let it on 20 if you have enough disk space. Also, we want to split the virtual disk in other multiple files. We can just leave this option here. Now, first we need to customize the hardware because a few things are not right. Firstly, the memory needs to be at least 512 megabyte big. There are some limitations in PFsense with caching, etc. And for this we need at least 512 megabytes. The processor, we can just leave this on 1. We don't need more than 1 cores for this router. When you are like running a lot of computers and a lot of users behind this router, then of course you can select whatever is appropriate for your machine. But we do want to virtualize Intel VTX EPT or AMD VRVI. Then the CD drive, we want to select the image. So let's go and browse. And I've already downloaded this from the website. You can find the link in the description, as I have mentioned before. Let's go and open this. Well, as you can see, there's one network adapter. It is connected to the NAT connection of VMware, but we need another one. So let's go and put that one in. Let's go and add a network adapter. Next, we need to, in this case, we can just put it on host only. For now, we will change that in a moment. Then let's go to finish. Now we also have the option for LAN segment. The difference between a LAN segment and the host only option is that with host only, VMware can also provide a DHCP server service, and on the LAN segment there will be nothing at all. But since we are installing a router that has a DHCP server built in, we don't need that. So we want to select the LAN segment. And for you there will be nothing here probably if you never used LAN segments. So we click on LAN segments first, you click on add, you fill in the name, and then you can select that one here in the list. In this case I will use the PFsense LAN. Okay. Last thing, we have the sound card here. We can remove this since a router does not need a sound card, and we can just leave this on auto detect because we are not going to do anything on this display except for a little bit of command line interface. So we click on close. You can check if this is all right, and this is all correct. So let's finish this. And there it is. We have it here right here. So let's go and power this on. It's going to start the virtual machine right now. And there it is. You need to click on the screen for the screen to get active. In this case, you can press 1 for multi-user if you don't want to wait. And there it goes, it's booting up now. In a moment we will get the option to install the PFsense software onto the hard drive, and that is what we want to do. So that will come up in a moment. And there it is. So we need to press I for installer. It detected VMware, so that's good. And then it will give us a few options. Well, the installation of PFsense is really straightforward. We don't need to do anything here. We can just accept these settings. Here we just select the quick and easy install. The only difference, by the way, between the quick and easy install and the custom install is that you can choose yourself how to format your drive and how to create the partitions with the swap file, etc. But since this is not really necessary, we just choose for easy install, and then yes, we are sure, okay, and then it's going to install it. This won't take very long. It is a really small operating system in comparison to things like Windows or Windows Server. By the way, if you want to get out of this screen and you don't know how to do this, since you can't use your cursor, etc. anymore right now, you can press on Ctrl and Alt, and if you do that, your cursor will appear again, and then you can do something again. If you want to get back into this active screen, then you can use Ctrl G, and then we will be back in. Okay, well, there we are. In this case, we will choose standard kernel. We don't need an embedded kernel because we would like to see what we're doing, and since we don't have a we can't use a serial console connection to connect to this machine, so we just use the standard kernel. That will now finish up the installation. This will only take a few moments. Okay, and there we are. We can just press enter to reboot now. As you can see, the default username and password is admin and PFsense, and now the LAN interface is connected to has an IP address of 192.168.1.1. So this is what we can use in a moment. So we let it boot. This will only take a while. Okay. Configuring all the devices. In a moment it will start all these services. And there it goes. Okay. It is done in a moment. And there it is. Well, this is the screen that you will always see when you boot or open up PFsense in VMware. As you can see, we have two interfaces. We have the WAN interface, EM0, and the LAN interface, EM1. Since we added two network interfaces and it knows which one was installed first, it already it knows which one gets the DHCP, so it knows that this interface will be the WAN interface. And now what we need to do is we need to go to our client, so we need to release the cursor with Ctrl Alt, and then we go to the client, we log in on the client, and now we in this case this client is not configured on the network yet, so we go to right click and then settings. Okay, and since I installed it just now before, it's still on NAT, so we need to go to LAN segment and then select the PFsense LAN segment, as I did with the LAN connection on the PFsense router. This could be differently named on your server, so let's select that one and let's go to OK. I will open up the network connections, the Ethernet. Let's go to edit. As you can see, it is this network interface is configured with DHCP. So if we are going to check out now what IP address it is getting, it should get a IP address that starts with 192.168.1. something. So let's go to the terminal in this case. You can also do this with CMD on your Windows computer. On your Windows computer you can use the command ipconfig, and on Linux this will be ifconfig. Since I'm on Linux, in this case we're just gonna use root and then look up the IP address. As you can see, this is the first virtual machine that is connecting to the router, and it has the IP address of 192.168.1.100 with a subnet mask of /24 or 255.255.255.0. Okay, we can close the terminal. We want to check out if we have an internet connection, so let's see if this is working. There we are. We can just go to Google NL. So we want to look up the IP address now from the router. So let's remove this. This will be 192.168.1.1. Enter. Now it will say that the connection is not secure because we are using a HTTPS connection here, but the certificate is not valid. So in this case we go to advanced, proceed. They say it's unsafe, but it is not really because we manage this machine ourselves. So the username was admin and the password was PFsense. There we go. Let's make this a little bit bigger. Now we need to go through the initial configuration process. Yeah, you can just ignore this. It's about the subscription. Okay. Well, the host name, in this case it's PFsense with me. I'm going to leave it like this, and then we need to fill in a domain. This can be whatever you want. Just do not choose a do not use a domain that is already registered or that could be registered. So in this case we will put in WFRS.local, since local is not a top level domain that is on the internet. The primary DNS server and stuff, we can just leave this empty, since it will get a DHCP server over it will get a DNS server over DHCP on the WAN connection. We can leave this time server here, that's totally fine, but we are not in ETC UTC, at least not in my case. Your case could be different. I'm from the Netherlands, so I choose Amsterdam, obviously. Then we go to next. The WAN interface will be configured via DHCP. The general configuration, we can just leave it for that. And the same goes for the static IP, because we're not using that. And everything else as well. What we do want to do though is we want to uncheck this checkbox here. So what this is basically doing, right now it is blocking networks from the WAN interface to connect to this. If it is a private network, like a 192.168 address. Since we are behind a VMware net connection that is also a 192.168 network, we need to uncheck this so that we can manage the network later on from the other side of the firewall. We do want to let this option checked on, and then we go to next. Okay, well, the LAN IP address now is 192.168.1.1/24. Although you could change this to anything you want, as long as it is a valid private network range. In this case, you could just leave it for like this, but if you already have, for instance, this network in use, then you could say, like, we put this like 50. Oops, numlock 50.1 and then /24. For this tutorial, I will just leave it at 1.1 and then /24 subnet. The password, so by default it is PFsense. So in this case, I will just leave it PFsense. But in your case, you would probably want to change this password to something different. And then let's go reload PFsense to apply the settings. Okay, so it's ready. So we go to the web configurator. And here we are, PFsense. In this case, we do need to install one thing before we should do anything else, and that is installing a package in the form of OpenVMTools, which is a package with some drivers and settings and some tools that PFsense can use to connect to the VMware host and vice versa. With this package, you can, for instance, when you say you want to shut down the VM, that it will do this in a correct way, not just turn off the power. So let's go to System and then to where it is there in the Package Manager. Let's go to Available Packages. It's going to take a while. There it is. Then we look for Open, and there it is, OpenVMTools. So let's go and install this. We confirm. Then it will open up a terminal window here and install it. Okay, it's almost done with downloading. Okay, almost there. Okay, there we go. It is installed. So now we can go to System again. We go to Update. Then we will check if there are any updates available. And as you can see, we already have 2.3.4, which is the latest base system at this moment. So now we go to Diagnostics. Excuse me. Yeah, Diagnostics, and then to Reboot. Again, Reboot. Okay. And it will reboot the system. Now we can go to the PFsense here in the top corner, and as you can see, now VMware is installed, and it will reboot the server now. It's not really necessary to reboot the server, but I like to reboot the system always after installing some important updates, especially if you're not running anything yet behind your network. Okay. Almost done. Okay, now it is about done. So let's go back to the client. In a moment, there it is. Let's go back to the client and click on the logo. We need to fill in the username and password. Remember that if you change the password, it's going to be the new password, obviously. So now, as you can see, we have two interfaces. We have the WAN interface with this IP address, and this IP address 137 is the range that my VMware Workstation net connection is using, and the 1.1 LAN connection. As you have seen also that the client itself can connect to the internet. So that works fine as well. So now we have our own router built with PFsense. In some other videos I will go a bit more into depth about the services that PFsense provides. Things like the DHCP server or the DNS forwarder server. We also have things like the VPN connection with OpenVPN, for instance, and of course a firewall where we can create rules to filter and redirect all the packages over our network. So for now, thank you for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments below. And don't forget, if you like this video, to like and maybe subscribe to my channel. So thank you for watching, and see you next time.